Hi there, in this tutorial we are going to get our logo to animate in at the beginning of our video. In this case it's going to be like that one there where it scales in, okay, but we'll also look at getting it to slide in from the side and fade in. Okay, let's look at doing all three of those in the tutorial one more time. Ooh, let's go and do that now. Okay, so before we do our logo animation, we've been playing around with things. Things are all a bit mixed up. So remember, if we want to reset our workspace, we go to Window, Workspaces, and be on Editing. Make sure you set Reset to Save Layout. Everything kind of goes back to normal. Okay, so there's a few things I want to bring in first. So let's go to Command I or Control I for import. And let's bring in the logo and the background music. You can bring them in separately or together like I have. I grab them both by holding down the Command key and clicking each of them. That's on a Mac. If you're on a PC, it's the Control key. First thing I want to do is I want to select, you can see I'm on my selection tool. I'm pretty much on that like 99% of the time in Premiere. I'm going to grab all of these parts in my timeline just by clicking, holding and dragging out here. And then just grabbing anywhere in this kind of first one here and just drag it all the way across here, just so I've got some playroom over here. Then we'll drag it back in once we get our animation timed right. Okay, so first thing I need is I'm gonna bring in my logo. Okay, I'm gonna bring it in here and move my playhead. There's my logo. Now my logo looks better on a white background. By default, everything is black in Premiere Pro. To change that, there's no like background setting. Okay, you actually add a white box in the background. Now, it's not called a white box, okay? It's called a color matte. So we're gonna create one. I'm gonna go to File, New. And down here, there is something called a color matte, okay? And it's matching the same size as my video, which is perfect. Everything's perfect, okay. Pick a color. I'm gonna click, hold, and drag the circle. Hold, drag it to the bottom. Okay, click OK. Gonna give it a name. Color matte doesn't make much sense. Okay, we're gonna call it background white. Cool, so it's over here in my project window. I'm gonna click, hold, and drag it over here. Now, we've got layers now. Okay, so it can't go down here. Why? Because this is audio, and this is not an audio, it's an actual image. Now, the layer order is gonna be important because I'm gonna put this thing on the top here, and it's like a bird. Okay, you end up looking down from the top here, and you see this guy first, and underneath it's my logo, which I can't see. So we're gonna change the order. I'm gonna drag him up and put this guy underneath. Cool. So now I've got a logo with a white background. And before we move on, I'm going to add my background music. Why? Whenever I'm doing animation, I like to have the music that's going to appear because it helps me with pacing and timing. Yeah, anyway. So here's my background music. This is going to go on its own layer as well because if I accidentally add it here, it's going to wipe all of my speech, which is not good. So I'm going to undo. Click, hold, and drag it so it's underneath. There we are. And now I'm going to put my playhead back to the beginning, hit spacebar. Ooh, listen to that music. Okay, very exciting. So what I'd like to do is get it to animate. We're going to look at a few different types of animation. You'll pick one of them. It'll be one of these three. So we're going to do a fade in, a slide in, and then a scale up. Okay, so first of all, we'll do our fade in. It's nice and easy. So put our playhead way back at the beginning. So what I'd like to do is when it's at the beginning here, I'd like it to be completely transparent. And when it comes along, the opacity is going to rise till it is now so we can see it. Okay, so a fade in. So let's look at doing it using animation. So I'm going to make sure this part is clicked. That's my logo. Okay, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So the plus key, so I can see things a little bit easier. So I want to animate the logo, obviously not the white background. So with that selected, we're going to switch to up the top here to Effects Controls. Okay, and with it selected, you can see, we kind of looked at this earlier on. We've got motion and opacity. Yours might be twirled up like that. So hit this little arrow here for motion. You can see there's scale and position, which we'll do in a second, but this one we want opacity, so twirl that down. Now, at the beginning here, I want to change my opacity. I'm going to drag it down to 0, or you can type 0 in there. Great, and you'll see that this little diamond appears, a little keyframe. Okay, that's going to set at this time, it's going to be set to 0. And if I move it along a little bit, now how long? I always do timing by hitting spacebar and then hitting spacebar again to stop it, watch. So I felt like that's long enough for it. You can adjust it afterwards. So I felt like maybe after 22 frames, okay, yeah, that's where we're going to get it to fade into 100. So I'm going to drag it all out. Cool, another keyframe appears. So there's one at 0, one at 100. Move our playhead back. It doesn't really matter if you use that playhead or the one down here. Okay, you can see they're kind of connected. This is just a different view of the same timeline. So back to the beginning, hit spacebar. There goes my little fade in. Okay, you can get it to fade out just as easily. Okay, so we get to a bit and we want it to finish maybe there, is I can't just turn it back to 0. Okay, that's an interesting thing that happens pretty much every time I teach the class is that, yeah, just a little mistake because that is 0, that is 100. And if that's 0, it's going to slowly kind of, watch this, gets to 100, but then I'm going to hit spacebar and it slowly fades all the way out to here. So we want a kind of more of a ramp. Okay, so we want it to get to 100, stay to 100 for a while, and then drop off. So get it to a point where you're ready. And what we're gonna do is, see this one here? This is add remove a manual keyframe. What we happened before is when we drag this, it gets added automatically. What we can do is actually force it there. You're 100. Then go along a little bit further and drag it down to 0. So fades in, holds for a little while, and then fades out. Nice. Now what I could do is I could zoom out down here, minus, minus, minus. I have to kind of click down here. If I'm doing it up here, it zooms in and out of that timeline. But if I click down here, I use plus and minus, okay, I can zoom in and out down the bottom here. Now I could drag this back in and start doing my animation, well, getting there maybe the transition to blend in nicely with my talking head. But actually what I want to do before we go in there is I'm going to come up here, zoom back in, and I'm going to get rid of this animation. So what I'm going to do is probably just delete it. And we'll just drag it back in. So logo.ai. Okay, and what we're going to do in this case is get it to slide in. So it's going to start over here on the left and just slide into the middle. All right, for this to work, let's move our playhead back to the beginning here. So we're at 0. And let's have the logo selected here in my timeline. And up here in my effects controls, if you can't find it, remember, effects controls. And before we had opacity twirled open, now untwirl this one, this little arrow here for motion. So different from opacity. Opacity had the keyframes kind of ready to go. What we have to do in for all the rest of them is we need to turn it on. Okay, it's this little stopwatch here. If we click on this little stopwatch for motion, that's the movement, okay, left and right, turn this on, it goes blue. We get our first keyframe over here. And that's, I guess, the difference between this and opacity, is opacity has that on by default. So we're gonna drag this first slider left and right. Okay, you can see that's the X and that's the Y. Okay, so we're gonna drag this over. You have to click and drag it a few times. You can hold shift down while you're dragging, makes it move in bigger chunks. Okay, so it's gonna start off screen. Okay, and then after some time, how long, and hit spacebar again and stop it where I feel, we can adjust that afterwards, but let's hit spacebar. That feels like long enough to slide in. Okay, so now I'm gonna just drag it across this way. Gonna get it in the middle. That feels about right. And you can see there's my other keyframe. Go back to the beginning, hit spacebar, and that is how things slide in. We need to make it look a little prettier potentially. We use easing, and also the timing might be off. So if you're finding like your keyframes all the way over here and you're finding like, whoa, it's taking forever. What you need to do is click this last one, make it go blue, drag it into somewhere where you feel. Yeah. All right. What we'll do now is make it look a little prettier. So we're going to do something called easing. Now, if you've used ease in any other program, it's very similar, but very different. It's the opposite. So click this first keyframe, okay, and right click it. Okay, so make it go blue, right click it, go to temporal interpolation. That's what they call easing. And if you're like me from After Effects or, I don't know, Flash or Adobe Animate, you feel like you want it to ease in now. Actually, it's ease out. So the first one's ease out and the last one is ease in. Now you won't remember that, just try, it's either one of these two, okay, and try them on both. If that doesn't work, flip them around, put the ease in and the out on the other one, move it back to the beginning, hit preview. You can see that it just has a lot nicer motion. Now it's pretty nice, like it's not as going, like it's kind of sliding in a little nicer. I like to exacerbate that. I'm not sure if that's the right word there, but I want to accentuate. I feel like that might be the better word. I want to make it a little bit more, okay? Ease in and ease out is good, but I want to accentuate it. So you can do that by clicking this, see this little arrow here next to position? Okay, that little guy here is the easing. Okay, that's a little bend. Without the easing, if I go undo, undo, you can kind of see it just kind of comes in. It doesn't have any sort of flow or it just, you know, looks very PowerPointy. It just kind of stops at the end there. But if I put that easing back on, it's got a nice bit of flow going. So to add a little more, hit the plus button. So I can zoom in. Now, because I've got my little blue box around here, I'm zooming in up here, not down here. Okay, so it's the same plus and minus. And what I want to do is I've dragged the center of this, got it in, so I can then drag this a little bit this way, and then drag a little bit more this way. And I'm kind of just like giving it more. Okay, so spacebar, you can kind of see it might be a bit much. It's got this kind of like cool little wiggle on it, but yeah, that's how to do easing when you're doing any sort of position. Works for scale. You can do it for opacity, but it's really hard to see any sort of easing in opacity, so I never do it. But yeah, that's how to do the kind of slide in, and that's the one that I want probably. So that's where I'll leave that one. We could grab our video and kind of jam it up next to it and get a transition going. I'm gonna do the last one, which is scale. So I'm gonna again delete all our hard work, bring in the logo again. And what I wanna do in this case is under motion, I've got my logo selected. Okay, I'm gonna click on scale stopwatch, get my first keyframe. How big is it gonna be? It's gonna be a 0, so it's very small. And then after some time, okay, I'm going to get it to come up to 100. Cool. And let's give it a preview. Let's go back, hit spacebar. It's a bit slow, so I'm going to drag these guys a bit closer to each other. Cool. What we might do is add our easing again. So this first one, okay, remember it's ease out, and the last one is easing in. Okay, and it's better. I'm going to go and accentuate it, exacerbate it, whatever word should be used there. Okay, this one's a little different because instead of just having, remember our slid in from the left, there was only X kind of axis being used. So it only had one line. This one is X and Y because it's scaling both height and width. So there's two of them. So what we can do is just need to kind of match them. They're actually joined, which is easy, but they look a little different. Fix this bottom one. Cool, now let's have a little look. I like it, it's got a better pace to it. Also remember, if I hit plus and minus, because I'm selected down here, it's only plus and minusing, zooming in down the bottom. If I click up here, so the blue boxes around the outside, that same plus and minus operates this. So it might be a little useful to zoom in and adjust this one here. All right, so that's gonna be my logo animation. Okay, we'll use the scale one in this case. What I'd like to do now is zoom out a little bit down the bottom here, grab all of these guys, put them up next to this one, zoom back in and fix the transition. Now, transitions can be a little weird when you've got two layers. Okay, so I'm gonna get rid of the dip to black here. Find my, go to window, go to effects, okay, and down here under video transitions, dissolve. Okay, we've got some options in here. If I grab dip to black and do it between these two, it's gonna kind of work, watch. Hi there. So it worked, except the logo doesn't fade, okay, because it's not on the same layer. But if I grab dip to black, you're like, awesome, I'll just add it to this layer here. Dip to black, come here. Okay, problem with him is that he actually dips to black really early and then comes back in and it just looks messy, watch. Hi there. You can see that's a bit ugly looking. So what we need to do with this logo here is we need to get it to fade out at the end rather than just kind of stop like it does. You could go through your opacity. Okay, we did that for one of the animations. Remember, keyframe and another keyframe. It's actually easier just to grab the cross dissolve and stick it on it because it kind of ends up looking like the exact same thing. Cross dissolve, get in there. Okay, now watch. Hi there, my name is... Cool. Okay, so some housekeeping before we move on and finish is that music's quite loud, and that's fine, it kind of jumps up here, but when I start talking, hi there, my name is Dan, and I'm a graphic, I'm kind of fighting it out, so we need to dip it down. So it's exactly the same thing we did when we started adjusting volume with the keyframes. So first thing I'm gonna do is, see this thing here, it's just too small, watch this, I'm gonna grab it and drag it down a bit. Okay, and see this slider across here? You can move this up and down. It's a little bit confusing down here. Okay, so here we go. I can see it, it's a bit bigger. What I wanna do is maybe just before I start talking, I'm gonna enter a keyframe and then maybe just afterwards, I'm gonna enter another one. Now, if you forget what the keyframe is, it's Command to click this little line here on a Mac or Control on a PC. And I'm gonna grab this line, holding nothing down on my keyboard now. I'm just gonna lower it down. So now we're gonna practice and to see how low it needs to be. Hi there, my name... So too low. Hi there, my name is Dan and I'm a graphic... Cool, so the rule is if you feel like it's low enough, it's probably still too high. That has always been my, like in classes, people think that's perfect, they get it to the perfect one, make it a little bit lower before you export it. Everyone seems to kind of need the music a little higher than it needs to be, me included when I get started, so... Hi there, my name is Dan and I'm a graphic... Cool. So it's going to do that for the whole time. Okay, you might have bits where you need to raise it up again, so just add a couple more keyframes, that type of thing. What I'm going to do to kind of finish this off is at the end here, my video, actually zoom out, Actually, my audio was all the way out here. Yours is probably the same. Okay, so it goes on forever. So my videos are gonna actually export to be like 3 minutes long when actually it should have finished way back here. So what we'll do is do a little logo animation just to fade it out. You can skip on now because it's the same old, same old. I'm just gonna grab my logo. So back to project. Grab my logo, I'm gonna put on the layer just above. I'm gonna grab my white background again, stick it just underneath. And let's do a bit of a fade across these two. So I start talking. And before I do the fade, it's actually really loud. You can see, watch this. If I zoom out, you can see my audio kind of, it has some bits where it's low and then gets really loud. So you can see it's really low across there. Actually, no, what I didn't do and what we didn't do in our course is we didn't raise that volume. Okay, we did this later in the course. We did the volumes of these guys, but we didn't raise this one. So it's probably this needs to get lower, but this one definitely needs to get bigger. So brings up a good, I guess, a good technique. We need to mute this background because it's really hard to hear me at any stage. So I'm going to mute that track. Okay, and I'm going to just drag this a bit bigger so I can see a bit more down here. Cool. So with this one selected, I remember it needed to go up about 8 decibels. So I'm going to right click it, go to audio gain. Cool. And
every single design
check it bouncing in the right place. This one probably needs to go up a little bit more. So I've gone up 8 plus 2.
Every single design tip and trick that
yeah, looks good. Now I'm going to unmute this. M's for mute.
I've learned over the years because my
still too high. So you can kind of see it just progressively gets higher and higher as it goes along. What I'm going to do is try and counterbalance that by progressively getting it lower and lower. So I'm going to add a keyframe back here and just kind of slowly hopefully balance that out.
Graphic design or desktop publishing before. Now I'm going to give you every single. There is no need for any experience in InDesign or graphic design or desktop publishing before. Now this course is for complete.
Okay, I think the whole thing just needs to be a lot less across lots of it.
Complete beginners.
Unmute it.
There is no need for any experience in.
There's a lot of playing around with this to make it feel good all the way through. I'm not gonna, I kind of half spending loads of time on it, but I'm gonna leave that for you now just to go through and experiment how high or low that should be. And what we'll do here with this logo is we'll get it to transition across to this. I'm gonna go dip to black again. Dip to black, drag it between these two, and remember our logo has the same problem, so I'm going to use my cross dissolve to make that kind of feel like it blends in. Here we go.
InDesign documents.
Cool. I want it to be a bit shorter.
Documents.
And actually maybe get it to start a little bit later. So my background fades in first, and then that starts going.
Design documents.
Nice. And what I might do is with the audio just at the end here is to get it to raise up a little bit because I stopped talking, right? So there's a bit of music while this is playing. Here we go.
Beautiful InDesign documents.
There's a really clear jump, so I'm just going to not be as
InDesign documents.
How long is this going to be? Now you can drag your logos any length because they're just stills we've got. Okay, and what I might do from here is add some keyframes and just get this to go down to 0. I'm going to zoom out so I can see the end, tuck it in, you get in there. I might get it to be less of a fall off as well, something like that. Cool, and what I do with these, I'm just going to leave it because a lot of videos, especially in social media, will hold on this last frame. Okay, so I'd like to leave it there with the branding. You could get it to fade out, use a cross dissolve, dip to black, yeah, anything you like, or maybe you could get it to scale in reverse to get smaller. All right, so that is going to be the end of this super long tutorial, this one. Yeah, let's finish this one there and get on to the next one. All right, I'll see you in the next video.